Hey everybody, welcome back to another broadcast with me and my lovely cousin Joy.
Hello.
Today we're going to address one of the suggestions that came in on the Video a Day Debruary topic suggestions form. And this one reads, codependent women involved with toxic men is what I see as a commonality in my hometown. Can you break that down for us and discuss the difference between a loving, healthy relationship and this bad emotional cycle? And I stared at this for a while because it was really sad when you really think about, the state of marriage in the Black community, how few young people actually get to see an example of a loving, healthy relationship, So I thought, well, this is a good question. So since both of us have been there and done that, had healthy relationships and some of the most sickest, twisted things inside of Mars, what do you think is a good explanation for why so many women get involved with toxic men? Let's start there.
Well, I don't think that the women get involved with toxic men. I think toxic men seek out codependent women. They do that so that that codependent women will bow down, be very submissive, treat him as the God that he thinks he is. And it's a cycle. They don't stop with one woman.
No.
They get multiple women who are codependent, and when they attempt to get a woman who is strong, they don't know how to love her or how to deal with her or what to do.
In a lot of instances, it seems like, I'm not saying that's the case in every situation, but it seems like, a lot of them will go after a woman who's got her stuff together and who is, strong-minded and has high self-esteem, and then proceed to do everything they can to break her down and make her like this so that they can make her, get her under their control. They'll try to discount her accomplishments, make her doubt herself and her talents and abilities, so that she came into the relationship, being confident and all of that. But by the end of it, in many instances, they're just destroyed, just a little shell of themselves.
Well, the key word there is toxic. And when they're doing things in that realm, it has a lot more to do with personality disorder. It's just not a trait. They have a full-blown disorder when they do that. And yes, they do seek out powerful women. They mimic, they mirror. They feel like if they can take that power away, it makes them more powerful, and it does not. It just continues the monstrous cycle that they're caught up in.
I always wondered why, some people are able to stand tall on their own accomplishments and, do things so that they raise themselves up, whereas other people only feel big and powerful if they standing on your head. So it's not like they're elevating themselves, they just want to push you down, so that in comparison, they seem like they're up higher. So when we talk about the women, though, in what she called a bad emotional cycle, do you think, it's kind of like reflecting on some of the women that you've come across in your life, that they have some common personality traits, a common behavioral thing, or a common way that they were raised? There has to be some common ground that why some women fall prey to this and others are immune to it.
Well, most men and women choose someone who is, if it's a man, like their mother, or if it's a woman, oftentimes like their father, some of the same characteristics and traits. So a lot of these women had a absentee father, or a father who was present but they can never get his attention, capture his love quite like they want it. So then they grew up with a warped sense of perception.
Right.
And they were always attracting this type of a male because that's all they knew. They didn't know anything else.
Yeah, that's really the unfortunate part. So if someone hasn't really had an example of a loving, healthy relationship and you try to explain it to them, they don't have any clue what you're talking about. Like, for an example, like, the power dynamic in a relationship, they're always raised to think that men are supposed to have it and the women, submit to the man. So if you've never seen an example where a couple negotiates power and negotiates responsibility and things like that without calling each other's names, without resorting to violence, these young people don't know how to do that. Any ideas, suggestions for how we can get them up on the game of how you negotiate with your partner in a way that creates a win-win for both of them?
Well, I think a lot of people are living back in the 50s when the man was the breadwinner, the woman took care of home, children. They really didn't work. Their job was working in the home, which
Right.
is, by the way, a lot of work. But we're in 2020 now, and there's been a paradigm shift. We're not back in the 50s. That is no longer the dynamic. It takes two incomes to live comfortably. Mm-hmm. And so therefore you have to share those responsibilities across the board. And it should not be a power struggle. It should be a situation where you sit down and you talk about strengths and weaknesses, and one person is holding up this end and the other person is going to be holding up the opposite end, and that's what makes for a healthy, balanced relationship.
I agree. And I think when people get together, they have these rote ideas about, quote, roles, and I don't think that really exists anymore. It's like you got two people coming together. Whoever's the best at that thing should handle that particular aspect of it. Now, the other person certainly can kick in. Not saying it should fall all on one person, but there has to be an appreciation for what each brings to the table, what your talents and strengths are. And if that talent and strength over there is going to push this relationship and this family a lot further and faster than this other person trying to struggle along and do it, why not let that person do it, whether that person's male or female? It might be a non-traditional, thought pattern, not non-traditional role, but why are we going to be constrained by roles if that's not going to be the best solution and the best, most advantageous position for the family to be in? That's one thing I think a lot of women struggle with, because they have this idea that they want the man to automatically be the leader and the breadwinner and all this kind of stuff. And they really struggle with the fact that he's not that, and they are.
Well, I think that some women, if they grew up in that type of a household, mm-hmm. Where the father was the breadwinner and the mother was a homemaker, then that is what they know, so that is what they look for. However, I don't see how that can even be possible nowadays, because things have shifted in such a way that nothing is as it right. used to be. There is such blurred lines even within a man being a man and a woman being a woman nowadays.
I know. My God.
So it's like, how can you say that this person plays this role and this person plays that role when so many men like men and women, and so many women like women and men? So it's kind of like an oxymoron to even talk about roles, because the lines are just blurred beyond recognition.
Yeah. I don't know, but I see that a lot. And, so people go into these relationships with these really, I think, unrealistic expectations. And then, of course, they don't get met. And it causes a lot of problems. And then they ultimately end up breaking up, and, the kids get involved and all that, when they could have just discuss all of this before you get married, before you say I do, before you start having kids with somebody and moving in with them and stuff. Get clear on what it is this person expects, what your talents are, what their talents are, and then you guys work that out for what's going to be the best for everybody long term. That, to me, is the foundation of a healthy relationship.
And I really and truly believe that that's normally how it does start out. But after you've been with someone for some years, people change. They grow apart. things happen where the dynamic of the relationship itself changes, and that doesn't make that person bad or the other person good, or vice versa, or anybody bigger or smaller. It's just a thing where you start to grow in different directions, and unfortunately some people are just stagnant and they don't have an ability to grow. So then someone has to make a hard decision of, do you keep beating your head up against this brick wall, or do you decide enough's enough, nothing's going to change, and then it's up to you to make the change.
Yeah, because then at that point, you're right, the relationship has turned into one that is no longer healthy, because the partner who's, you know, growing and changing and stretching boundaries then would be constrained and limited by the person who doesn't want to do that growing and changing. You see that a lot.
Yes.
You know, you see it a lot. And usually it's the woman who's growing and changing, and the man just wants to stay the same as she was, you know, for the way back in 1970. He wants her to still be like that. She's like, well, I don't think so.
Well, too, with so many more women having careers now, it can go both ways. You know, sometimes the man is very ambitious and he is looking for an equal. The woman is looking for an equal, and then what do you do when that person is no longer your equal? You want things, you want to grow, you want to build, and they're stagnant and complacent. It puts a real strain on the relationship as well, whether it's male or female.
Yeah, because then the person, you end up bringing that person along or trying to carry that dead weight into the future all by yourself. That just never works. You get exhausted because you're doing what you're trying to do and trying to do it for them too, and they're not carrying their load. So there's a lot of women, you know, they got lines and wrinkles and stuff. They all looking all toe up and stuff, you know, trying to carry this dead weight man on their back because he don't want to do nothing. But they don't want to leave their marriage. It's became a real dilemma. So what other things would you say, you know, a few other hints for people to know a relationship is a healthy one and it's a loving one and it's mutually supportive versus one that is not?
Well, I think that any relationship, whether you're married or not, is give and take. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. You have to come to a commonality and have agreements. If your mate is telling you that I don't like when you do X, Y, and Z, and then the other person says, well, I don't like when you do A, B, or C. You have to find that happy medium because it's no longer all about you. It's a we situation. So if you don't care how you're making someone feel in a relationship, you're not ready for a relationship because it is give and take. It can't be all you, because if it was all you, you'd be single. And you can't be single and in a relationship or married at the same time. It doesn't work.
You're right. Yeah, we just did a show based on a video that Oprah did back in 2005, an interview she did with 7 men who married men who were cheating and why they, you know, the excuses that they gave for cheating. And it all boiled down to because they wanted to, because their ego, because this person made them feel like something. And I'm looking at that like, but these are people that we trust to be the leaders and tell them that they should be the leaders of the household and have all this power and stuff. And they're so dependent on a fleeting thing like a feeling that a complete stranger gives them. They take that as, you know, some kind of like ego boost or something. I don't know. It was really weird. So you're sitting there looking at it, and that what you just said about being selfish and thinking only about yourself definitely came into play in all 7 discussions that she had on the show.
They also have a feeling of the grass being greener on the other side. And if you've been in a long-term relationship, sometimes individuals feel like, oh, that person will never leave. They'll keep taking whatever I'm dishing out. We've been together for so long. We have a family. We have children. We have grandchildren. And that's not the case.
Right.
There's only so much you're going to take where you try to work with someone. And then when it becomes a situation where you start taking that person for granted, and that doesn't feel good. And I don't know anyone who wants to spend their life being miserable and unhappy.
I don't know. I mean, they might not make that conscious decision, but the fact that they're in a situation where they are miserable and unhappy, yet they stay, they make excuses why they can't leave or won't leave. It's kind of amazing to me. You know, we only have a certain number of years here, and I refuse to spend even one of mine being miserable looking at some man that's just making me frown every day. I want to wake up happy, you know, showing all my teeth. So I don't understand it. I see women do that now. They talk about, you know, these men they've been in these long-term relationships with, they have kids with grandkids, all stuff, and you know how he just is so vicious and mean to them and thoughtless and cruel. And I'm like, well, why? You know, some of them put their hands on the women, all kind of stuff. So it's like, why don't you leave that? That's obviously the antithesis of what this young lady's asking about, a loving, healthy relationship. And you know, but there's something in their head, and it could be what you said, this is all they've seen, so that's all they know. So to them that's normal. But I just don't understand how you could think that feeling negative like that about yourself and about your lifestyle and where, you know, where you're living and who you're living with could be considered normal and acceptable.
Well, that gets back to what I was saying about the toxic male choosing a particular type of female. Because, I mean, even if you have a job making over $200,000 a year, Ivy League education, if you had a traumatic childhood, those psychological scars are still there. And unfortunately, these toxic men can smell it out. In an arena of over 30,000 people. They know exactly which woman to go to and it's a conditioning process. We had talked about before, you know, if I don't care if it's a redwood or an oak tree, if you keep getting chipped in the same spot, sooner or later you're going to, you know, it's going to fall over. So it becomes a situation where you have to do a lot of thinking, and there's nothing wrong with feeling. We had this conversation last night. I believe in feelings very much, so I think it's important to have a balance. But if your feelings, if your heart is leading you astray, you need to switch over to your head at that point.
Oh, immediately. Well, this is really interesting. I think we have some more to say on this topic because we got a lot of questions in from you all for the video a day Debruary topic suggestions, and we will be addressing another question that came in a little bit. But I hope this answers your question, give you some ideas about the difference between an unhealthy and a healthy relationship and what kind of things you need to have in play for the relationship to be considered a healthy one. So thank you guys for watching. Keep watching. We got a lot more videos coming up for this month, and I hope you enjoy them. Bye.